on the menu Boston.com, Facebook, and YouTube. We air live every first and third Sundays of the month. This week's conversation, interracial relationships. Your hosts, Ebony and Ivory.
Oh, here we go. I want to know which one am I?
I'm Ivory.
I think I'm kind of mocha chocolate. Yeah, mocha chocolate. That's me. Okay, folks, here we go. We're going to talk about interracial dating, marriage, and relationships. What you think about that topic, Jay?
Man, I'm excited, man.
Yeah.
It's something that, that's influenced our culture right now. So it's like, it's good that we're tackling these topics like right head on.
Yeah. You think about, I always think about back in the day, if Adolf Hitler would have ruled the world, would there be black folks now available to date interracially? Would it be around? He probably would have wiped us all out. Oh, my goodness. I'm glad we won that war. But
yes,
here we
indeed.
go. Let's introduce our panelists. First, I'm going to go to my man. This dude is one of the smoothest white cats that I know.
Yeah, he is smooth.
He's so smooth. His name, that movie, that TV show, Everyone Loves Raymond?
Yeah.
At City Hall, we said, Everyone Loves Pat, and he's in the building. My man, Pat Hoey. Say hello, Pat.
Hey, Trace.
That's my man. Next, we have the next person on the panel. She is the champion of the people, folks. She's back for a second or third appearance. Third appearance. Always welcome to be in the building with us. Always welcome to have her on the show, Miss Linda Champion.
Champ is here.
What's up?
All right, Champ is here. This next lady is a new jack. That's right. She's out of Detroit, Michigan. I just met her not too long ago, but very nice and very cool. Surprised me when I saw her in a video doing some hip-hop dancing on stage when they had a talent show, and she was up there doing her thing.
Hey now.
Yes, she was. And she goes by the name of Kiana Silverman Maddox. Say hello, Kiana.
Hey, thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming, Kiana. Next on the mic, he showed up, Jay. When I first talked to his wife, she said, I don't know if he's going to make it. I don't know if I came through the door, he had the biggest smile on his face, and he looked like he said, I'm ready to tackle this.
He's ready to go.
I'm ready to get it in.
That's right.
I'm ready to get it in. And he's smooth, and this is his new name, Noah Ponytail Gardner.
He do got a nice ponytail, I see.
How are you?
That's a man with a ponytail. I wish I had a ponytail. I can't get it that long. It drives me crazy.
Too old, man.
I can't manage it. Too old. They start to fall out after a while.
Oh.
All right, so let's get down to this topic now. Let's just go one by one. Pat, let's start with you. What racial group do you identify with? And give me a little bit about your background in regards to this topic.
For those of you that aren't watching on TV, I am a white dude. I'm definitely Caucasian American. My background, I grew up in Boston. I was born and raised in Jamaica Plain, and I live in Hyde Park now. That's like the suburbs to Jamaica Plain. But Jamaica Plain growing up was a diverse neighborhood, and all kinds of people, especially back in the 70s growing up. And,
And who are you married to?
my wife is, she's a black woman. We've been married. We have an anniversary coming up, 20 years marriage.
Wow.
30th.
That's awesome.
We've been together about 25 years.
Okay, and what's your beautiful daughter's name?
Amber.
Amber. And I want to give out to shout out to Josephine, that's Pat's wife. She wasn't able to make it today. We're going to get you next time, Josephine, most definitely. And let's go to our next panelist. Linda, tell us about yourself and your racial makeup.
So I am 100% Blasian.
Blasian?
And then if you want to know how I identify, the fact that black comes before Asian, I'm Blasian.
Okay. Wait, tell us how the breakup. Your mother?
So my mom is from Seoul, Korea, and my father is from Longview, Texas.
Wow. That's a good break. That's definitely a good breakdown. Kiana, give us a little bit of background of yourself.
Sure. So my mother is Caucasian. She's Ashkenazi Jewish, and my father's African American from Georgia, but by way of Detroit, Michigan.
Okay. And you are married to?
I'm married to a white Jewish man.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. My man's Noah. Noah, come on, baby. Give us your breakdown. Tell us what's going on.
I would identify, I guess, skin color wise, white, and but also as Jewish also. So that throws something else out there, I guess, too.
Sure. And you're married too?
I'm married to my beautiful wife, Kiana, who's biracial, Jewish and African American.
Okay. All right. We have a good breakdown here.
I like that.
So let's and what I'll do is I'll look at you sometime and give an answer. Just jump in anytime you want to. Linda, it seems to me, I wrote even this in our appetizer online. It seems like with the issue around race and dating and marriage, it really only matters, it seems to me, if it's black and white. Do other races, are there other factors that come into it, or is it really a race issue when it's just black marrying or dating white folks?
So for me, growing up, my mom always would say, don't date black and don't marry black.
Okay.
But the reason she said that is because, remember, my parents got married in the 70s. And my dad was coming out of the Vietnam War, and bringing a Korean woman to East Texas was taboo.
Sure.
And, back then they didn't say Asian, they called you a rug. You were Oriental.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah,
So it was like, he brought some Oriental home.
That's the close to that N-word.
Right? Yeah. And so, my mom didn't speak English. So no matter what people were saying about her or around her, she couldn't understand what they were saying. But one thing was clear in speaking to my parents and talking to my dad is one of the things that the black community also didn't want was an Oriental.
Sure, sure.
And so they had every odd stacked against them. And my mom was disowned by her family and never made contact with them again until her mother was about to pass, and that was over 30 years later.
Wow. That's something. Wow, that is something. Pat, you grew up in Boston in the 70s during desegregation of schools. From what I hear from family members, things were fine in Boston and between blacks and whites until that happened. So when you first started dating, you're coming out of a period that was tough, and you're coming from a situation where you were raised probably in neighborhoods that, like, I'm not messing with them black folks. How was it for you? Was it really an issue when you were younger, dating your wife?
I mean, it was Boston was really segregated, more so than it is today. In the 70s with busing, that was a tumultuous period. A lot of negativity, and in the 80s when I was older, I'm not that old. I'll be 54 coming up, but I wasn't dating in the 70s. I was just a kid, but. In the 80s, my high school sweetheart was a redhead. She was a Caucasian, and but I dated women of all backgrounds, and in the 80s that was also kind of a rough time for interracial relationships, kind of in public and stuff. My experience, I speak from my experience. It was pretty positive. I never really encountered kind of outright blatant racism in interracial dating, and that was my experience. I've been fortunate, but we've come a long way. It was, you just didn't go certain places and you avoided certain things.
Oh, wow, okay.
In places, just for fear of whatever, just kind of, not violence, but just, a negative vibe that you might want to avoid, which is unfortunate. And but that's much, much less so today.
Sure. I just want to say, no, I noticed that. I noticed you tapping your wife like we get ready to touch on some stuff here. I saw that. You don't think I got good peripheral vision there?
You have some good vision.
Yeah. But chime in, the two of you. Tell us what it was like. Did it matter, or was it more? Did you see it more because you were black and white dating? Tell us about that.
Well, no, we have encountered situations before, where we were at the bar. And I was talking to some guy. He was from South Africa. He happened to be very drunk, a white guy. And he was a little bit mad also because I had on a necklace with African beads. But then he casually dropped the N-bomb, like N-word right in front of me, and my wife heard it too. She got real mad, so she went in the bathroom. I confronted him. They threw him out of the bar. But afterwards, my wife was saying, I wish you would have punched him,
That's only one response that I think is appropriate.
I think that's why she went in the bathroom. But And then definitely I know my wife, just from her telling me from growing up and everything, she has a lot of stuff that she encountered growing up with
Go ahead, Karen.
interracial.
Chime in.
I think the first time that I realized that it was an issue, we were going down south and we had prepaid for a place in Florida to stay for some weeks. And when we arrived on the property, it was fine. My mother checked us in, and when we actually got into the hotel, they saw that we were a family of color and they proceeded to kick us out.
Wow.
Yeah, and we were basically homeless at that point.
What was the reason they gave?
They said something along the lines of I can't even honestly remember, but I think it had to do with their cultural. They had some rules on the property of like how you behave or something, but it was clearly because we were.
How long ago was this?
This was a long time ago. It's growing up, probably about 20, 30 years ago.
Wow. When you just being in those situations, interracial dating, marriage, or families, whether you've heard it directly or through the media in one point or another, does it make it hard on your relationships with family members or with folks that you maybe engage in a relationship with, based on what certain people in society will deem as incorrect?
I mean, I don't know. I think that today I was telling my mom that I was on my way here to talk about this topic, and I asked her sort of, you know, she's been in this country now 46 years. So what her feeling was now about interracial dating and if she thought it was good. And she said at the end of the day, there's one thing that people need, and that's love. And she feels it was a positive experience overall for her, even though she went through so much hardship, because it helps break down barriers of discrimination. And within her own family, to have her brothers and her Korean family embrace me and my sisters, it just allows them to see the black community in a very different way.
Sure.
And they would never see that if they didn't have us in their life.
Sure.
But I still am dealing with the backlash of the fact that my mother's Korean and she married a black man, and I see it more in the Korean community because we don't get invited to everything.
Sure.
And my mom feels that they try to make her feel like ashamed of having black children.
Okay.
So.
Anybody else want to jump in?
Tracy, with my family, I'm glad you brought it up. My family and my in-laws, it's just been such a great experience with, the two kind of cultures coming together and the support, through our dating and our marriage. And, when we got married and going forward with our relationship, having children. My mother-in-law has since passed away, but, just from day one was embraced. Right from the get-go, and my wife's brothers and sisters. She has a really big family, and just a lot of family gatherings and always together. And
that's got to be a lot of fun when it's all connected like that.
It's all the celebrations, family celebrations, being together, and having my daughter experience kind of both sides of the family. Sure. And the different cultures and the commonality too. Sure. That she experiences, but. Watching her playing with her cousins and everything like
Sure.
that, it's really, it's heartwarming.
I want to say that too, Pat, because you and I, we used to call ourselves Crockett and Tubbs because we used to spend a lot of time out of the building working together. And then we started talking about families, and I was always waiting for you to come out and say something that was negative, that had happened between in a black and a white relationship, and I just never heard that. And when you said commonalities, it makes me think when I first started working for the city of Boston, and I ended up in South Boston in certain neighborhoods, and Pat has that around the way type of dialect in his talk. Right away you start to assume, oh God, I got one of these type of white guys with me, and I started to experience that when I first started working with the city, and then I'm like, man, these folks is cool. Everybody was just cool with one another. It just made it feel so good. To be around folks, and we were just alike, hardworking folks, cared about our families,
Yep.
and just we felt it was good and bad and everything.
Did y'all like fried chicken too?
Fried chicken. Yeah, I like fried chicken, Pat. You like fried chicken?
I like Caribbean food.
Oh!
Can I say shout out to Flames? Is that all right?
There you go, Pat. I told you that was my man. I told you. Let me just ask this question. When you got to a point of dating, someone in a different race. Did you have to really think about that? Like, what was the deciding factor that made you date a white gentleman, a black woman, a white? You know, what was it? Did it have to be thought about and really considered before jumping 2 feet in?
Come on, Kiana.
It did. Because honestly, I didn't really actively date white men before I married my husband. I was very politically minded in that I didn't have a choice to be biracial, but I did have a choice that my family was to be of color. So it was a political thing that had to like switch off, that we can still be politically active and mindful and anti-racist. At the same time, I have an opportunity to love a wonderful man who's dedicated his life to me, so I definitely feel honored that way.
Okay. There you go. That was good. You did that right. You did that right. No one hugging it right. Come here. Come on.
Quick question, right? This is actually for the ladies, right? Was the brothers messing up? That made you kind of like, you know what? I'm gonna try a different flavor. You know? I just want to know, was the brothers messing up? That, you know.
Come on.
I mean, you gotta talk to her. I
So for me, I was in New York City, so I think that also played a role. And I also think men of color who are reached a certain status have a wider range of availability to them. So there is a level of frivolousness that they can attain, whereas women are like, oh, my clock is ticking. We need to make this, popping if it's going to pop. So I definitely think, I don't want to say black men, but just men in general, I think they have a lot of
No impact. What about, was there any thought about dating black women?
No, I never really like boundaries and kind of conventional kind of wisdom and things like that. I just always had just an uneasy feeling about not being able to go somewhere, or you're not supposed to go here, or you're not supposed to date this type of person. And I never really agreed with that, and was open to just all different cultures, and never really wanted to follow kind of the society's rules. And so when it came to dating, and I met my wife, it was just a random thing where she was in a fashion show and I was at the club, and I got a number.
At the club. I ain't got no problem going up to the club. That's a confident man.
I didn't think she'd ever call me back, but she did call me, weeks later, and we started dating, and we got married
first.
She made me wait.
No, I got to tell Pat, he's probably never heard this story, but it's funny. We work with a lot of the black women in the building, and Pat, you've been named as one of the best-looking white men in the building at City Hall. They've thrown that title to you.
You hear that, Josephine?
I'm sorry, Josephine. I had to throw that out there. That was just part of the show. Had to throw that out there. So let's hear from our sponsors. Now, let's see if she can get this correct. You know what? Let me ask one more question before we go to sponsors, because we'll have some extra time because we're not doing a national spotlight. When dating another race, or you're from a mixed family, does one particular culture dominate the other? Like, if because I've seen situations, I'm just talking about this one, where I've seen white women dating black men, and they kind of, man, I could tell she must be dating a brother, the way what she's wearing, how she's walking, how she's talking. You kind of get that feel. So does one part of the culture dominate the other?
I would say that definitely yes in the kitchen. You know what I mean?
Talk to me, Noah. Talk to me.
The seasoning level, you know what I mean? It stepped up.
You stepped up, Noah?
Oh, yeah.
What specific foods are you talking about?
I mean, I love to cook anyway, so definitely like salmon, throw some barbecue on there, right? We don't eat that much meat anymore, but we like the rice, macaroni, of course.
Macaroni and cheese,
The Thanksgiving, definitely my sister-in-law and Kiana, and the father-in-law, we're like, nope, need a little more seasoning in there.
Little flavor. Go ahead.
Yep.
Anyone else?
Yeah, so for me, culturally at home, Korean traditions and practices dominate. So shoes off at the door. There's a particular way we eat in terms of it having more of a community feel, and sharing our meals. But then also within our family structure, the hierarchy, it's very rigid in Korean culture, so the responsibilities of the firstborn child and how that impacts all the other children below.
Okay.
And who ultimately is responsible for the family structure. So it follows more the Korean traditions.
Okay. Pat?
Oh, Tracy, my wife is an excellent cook. She's a great cook. And she completely changed my diet. It started off, slow, and then gradually, but now it's like 100%. Like whatever she cooks, whatever she makes is just tremendous.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
it's unbelievable. It's really, I love it.
Okay. We're not actually at National Spotlight. We had questions from the country, right?
Yeah.
What we got, Jay?
Yo, Trey, some of these questions is very funny. So we have Miss Ariana from New York City. She says, if you have kids, what will your kids identify as?
I got a 17-year-old. She identifies white.
Yeah, okay. She identifies white.
I'll tell you right now, I don't see any Asian in her or black in her. And I don't know, I think it happens in school, that type of schools they go to, and every date she's brought home has been a young white male. Everyone
Is
she's
her
gone
father
to the
white?
her father's Cape Verdean.
Okay.
And so it's very interesting. She's not at all interested in men of color.
Wow.
Okay.
Wow.
She saved it on her credit.
Anybody else?
My daughter's 15, and she identifies as biracial. I think she just, appreciates what each, side of her background and ethnicity, brings to the table, and I think she really enjoys that and relishes the fact that she comes from these two different places, and she embodies both.
Sure. Pat, you Irish?
I'm Irish and Swedish. I'm like pretty white. Like I'm as white as you can get. It's pretty far north.
Sweden is neutral, so he's neutral.
You can't get more white than that.
We got my man Brandon from Atlanta from the ATL. He says, I am married to a black woman, and I remember when our parents met, it was kind of awkward. Was it weird when your parents met? It just goes to anybody on the panel.
Or even throw it into, was it weird when you met your partner?
Well, we met at my older sister's wedding in Brooklyn, and she married a Nigerian man, so we were at an interracial marriage there. They already had a daughter together, but his father is a preacher, and he actually said something when he was giving his toast, something about interracial marriages don't work. But he's a loving guy, and I don't know if it was kind of like a joke, an African joke or something.
You didn't get it, dude. You didn't get it.
Yeah.
You didn't. I got to date a black woman to get that joke. I'm not getting that.
Yep.
Yeah, I think it's always hard when parents meet for the first time, but we have the benefit. I had went overseas with his sister 15 years ago, so we knew of each other. We didn't know each other, but our families knew of each other. So.
Okay.
Carly from Washington, D.C., and she says, no, I'm sorry, we're going Dion from California. Do any of the couple on your show like the same music?
My mom listens to Soul Train.
Oh, like soca.
Soul Train, soca, yeah, we like the same type of stuff, same type of music.
My wife is really into soca music. I like soca and reggae.
Pat just got that flavor.
Everyone loves fat.
But I'm into house music, R&B, soul, more American kind of, African American
Pat,
music.
did you tell me you used to be a DJ?
Yeah, DJ Pat. Yes.
Pat's the man.
I told you, got that flavor. Go ahead, Jay.
Paul, my man Paul from Philadelphia, they asked, do you think your kids will be discriminated against for being mixed? I have an interesting perspective on that question. Any of you guys go ahead.
I'm so interested, God willing, we have children one day to see what their phenotypes are, because I think if they show up more white, I wonder how that will affect how they racially identify versus if they come out more of color. But definitely want to instill that knowledge of self in them to know, like, you better be fighting for me.
That's right. One way or another, you better be fighting for me.
Remember your mama.
That's right.
Absolutely.
So my daughter is much lighter than me, and I just remember doing a birthday party for her and like 12 of her friends, and they were all young white children, right? And I walked into the room, I walked around the entire table, and then I said, does anyone know where Taylor is? And they said, she's sitting right there. So in a room, she just blended in with the other white children that I even didn't recognize her.
Wow.
So I think that it does, in my opinion, change the way they also identify, because it's the way society treats them based on their own skin complexion.
Absolutely. Yeah, and you know what? It's funny because while we was tackling this topic, I was thinking to myself, like, yo, it's going to be, I think everybody's going to be mixed in like 10, 15, 20, 30 years. It's going to be a whole bunch of mixed people because, yo, we think the same. We like the same music. It's like, and you can see it right here. You know what I mean? So it's like I don't even think like race is going to be an issue.
You know something? One thing that you actually did this show, Jay.
I love to play in the snow, by the way.
Yeah.
I ski.
You know, the one thing that was that I think changed it in a big way is rap music. I think rap music has really crossed those racial lines. And you have young.
Are you sure what Michael Jackson?
Michael Jackson too.
Yeah, Mike. But with rap, you know, with Michael Jackson, that's one person. But with rap, there's so many artists out there, and so many young people. They all listen to the same things. Where you get if the N word is used in a record, you got the white guy saying and myself. You know.
Yeah.
You know they saying the word too. So I think that was a major part of it. But let's go back into this now. Are there any like particular words, phrases, clothes that you've adopted from your partner, from their culture that you use? Like has Kiana bought you stuff to wear that you normally wouldn't wear? Like, I don't know if I can pull this off.
It's more my father-in-law because he
you
hits up the spots.
Kiana, you hooked that up?
No, this is my father-in-law, but he hits up all the spots in Detroit, so he'll go to like the different spots, you know. But you get all the I used to actually shop like that in high school too, and then also when I got out, one of the main guys that started showing me how to dress happened to be an African American guy.
Okay.
A little bit older than me. He was about in his 20s, but you know, he was schooling me on, okay, Fridays you go get your outfit, you know what I mean?
Okay, so I got to ask you a question.
My father-in-law, he just goes ridiculous.
I got to ask you a question, though. Was that word schooling in your vocabulary? You married Kiana. Was that in your vocabulary? He's schooling me on how to wear that pimpin' stuff. Did you say pimpin' too? Did you say that? I could have swear I heard. But that sweater does look good on you. How about the rest of you guys? Anything different in regards to did your parents make you wear things that like, oh God, that doesn't really look good on me? That's my mother's side of the family. What about it?
Did you wear a dashiki?
Dashiki.
If I wore a hanbok, you guys would think it was Halloween. So for me, no.
I was wearing like Bermuda shorts when I met my wife. My fashion game had gone way downhill. She really has coached me in the fashion sense since we've met, and you know, over the 25 years we've been together. You know, in high school I always prided myself on, you know, dressing fashionably and in college and everything. But again, yeah, by the mid '90s I was kind of fading in my fashion sense. And she was helpful in getting me back into fashion.
I will say my wife has helped me out too, but I don't know if the people on the Facebook can see it, but I got on a nice pair of True Religion jeans.
You got on some shoes.
Now they're about, I remember when I got them like in 2014. Now I met my wife in 2014 too, but I haven't bought a new pair of these since I met her. I'll just say that.
She made you take care of them. We just can't throw them around, you know.
The shopping budget's gone.
Oh man, she got you stepped up, you know. She got you stepped up.
Definitely. Yeah.
So for folks that what has been the toughest thing for you in regards to being biracial or dating or married outside your culture? What's been the toughest thing to deal with? And I know, Kiana, you mentioned earlier about the incident that happened in Florida, you said it was? Yeah. And then, Noah, you mentioned about the incident as well at the bar. Do you take that stuff home with you? Does it become like a point of contention when you get home and sometimes he just push you like, I don't know if I can do this thing here?
I mean, I feel like the black community is embracing. That's the only way I could describe it. Like, we take everyone, and we don't get into all the nuances of color and race in that sense. Like, everyone is part of the black community. But the Asian American community is not like that. And so the racism is real, and it's very strong, right? So, and then what makes it worse is there was a period in the United States where they didn't want children speaking a second language. I mean, thank God a lot of that has changed, but back then in the 70s, you know, parents were coached to not teach their kids a second language so that they wouldn't speak with an accent, so that they wouldn't be discriminated against. But what it does is it creates, for me at least, it creates a huge separation between me and other Koreans, because I can't speak to them. So a Korean woman who is adopted out of an orphanage, who knows nothing about the culture and the traditions and how we do things, or even how to cook, and I cook every Korean dish, is more accepted as a Korean American, for example, than I would ever be, and because of the color of my skin.
Sure. And you have a very unique look, too. I mean, you look at you may say, wow, does she have an Asian background? You have a beautiful color of a brown skin. I'm sure that people have wondered, what are you? You know, plain and simple, and they ask you that question. Does that happen?
Yeah, all the time.
You look exotic.
Well, most people say I'm Dominican, or they'll say, or they'll ask me if I'm Filipino. Like, no one ever thinks I'm Korean, and no Korean will ever think I'm Korean. Okay, that's never gonna come out of their mouth. And then when you tell them I'm Korean, or you say something to them in Korean because they're being offensive, then they go, "Omo." How you learn, right? Like, so, and it's like, because my mom's Korean.
Sure,
you know,
sure.
But that I hate that explanation all the time.
I swear, I just, not to talk about Koreans, but more the Vietnamese. I wish I knew the language, because I swear when I go to that nail shop, I know they talking trash about my feet.
Yo.
I know they talking about my feet. If y'all watch Seinfeld, George Costanza, he knew Vietnamese, and they were talking about him. He said something. I was like, man, I'm going to take the class just for my pedicure. Just for my pedicure. What about the rest of you guys? Give me the toughest thing about being in this situation that you
I would say for me, it's a lot of just opening up my eyes more as a white man, just listening to my wife come home, tell me about her experiences out in the world, you know, as a woman of color and a black woman. That's how she identifies, and dealing with the racism on a daily level and just different encounters and stuff. So I just listen to her and be there for her, and we talk about it too, you know.
You know, I got to say too, because I gave it all to Pat. Noah, you are a smooth dude too.
Noah Smooth.
Noah Smooth.
Noah Smooth. I gave that to you.
Noah Smooth. Now, I got to ask you this question on Noah.
Okay.
That voice you got, that sound a little black now. That sound, was you talking like that before you met your wife? Because it sound like you might have transferred over. Skip the generation there. Let me show you what I got here.
I don't know. You'd have to ask my wife back here.
Kiana, tell us, Kiana.
No, I think he went to school. It was an all-black high school, so I think he kind of was around.
I mean, I remember in 8th grade, because I went to an all Jewish, like white Jewish mostly. There was a couple of people of color day school in St. Paul, but then in junior high, I went to like a regular inner city school or whatever. So I remember seeing like some of the black kids. They were like already like 6 feet tall, whatever. Little Jewish kid, but. I mean, on the bus a couple of times, there was this one black kid, he was calling me Toast or something, like white toast. I didn't say anything because I was like, that's all right. You can call me that. That's fine.
That's going to be my boy. That's what I'm Toast. I'm Toast. That's what I am. So, anybody, Kiana?
I think it's also like, it's a learning, right? It's continual learning and understanding.
Exactly,
and
that's
like,
what it is for me.
and making him aware of his privilege and how he can run interference for me. Or for stick up,
Other
if there's
people too.
say something, like that's an opportunity to disrupt some of those behaviors. So,
but that's the difference, in my opinion, between black and white couples versus black and Asian couples or any other race outside of white, because we don't have any privileges.
Sure.
On either side.
Sure.
So the discrimination comes from both sides. The racism is felt from both sides, and each of my parents will experience it in different ways through different groups.
Sure. You know, it's something too. I can remember growing up, and let's say I'm out. For me, luckily too, I've hung out with a lot of folks. You know, black, white, everything. Pretty much black, white, Latino. But I could be hanging out. You know, I could think about some of my buddies and conversations. Just that immature male conversation. We're out somewhere having a drink, and here comes a white dude could be smooth. He's with this black woman, and we mad at the white dude. We mad at him for being out with this black woman. Even though he's smooth, we still mad. We gonna make up something negative.
Really?
He must have money. You know, she ain't nothing. She must have grew up all around all white. She don't know nothing. Then you see a Latin guy come in smooth, an Asian guy smooth coming with a black woman, and you got number compliments for him. Number compliments, and I'm like, man, this thing seems to persist only if it's a black and white thing. And how do we get beyond this? You know, sometimes we just let it linger and linger and linger. And you know what it takes too? It really takes sometimes for you to hang out with some folks,
Absolutely.
you know, and to learn a little bit more. Like Pat said about the commonalities and the fun that you do have with other folks that just don't look, and not to just stereotype.
Yeah, you know what's so funny? Like, as we having this conversation, I remember my man, his name is Mike. We used to call him White Mike. And he you know, we went to like, I think we went to like middle school together. And he was like the only white kid that was in our class. But he was just vibing with us, you know what I mean? And he had game. His swagger was off the hook, you know what I mean? And the girls, the black girls, used to call him FWB, Fly White Boy. Yeah, but then, I mean, I seen him lately. You know, he's just the same dude. He's married to like a white, he's married to a white girl. But I know he's like, you know, he's tasting a little coffee here.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, that was my dude. Shout out to my man, White Mike.
Why you just diving on my
I do, right? That was my dude, right?
He actually make coffee. He drinks coffee.
Drink coffee.
What the Mike's like? What is he doing to me over here?
Right.
You know, with any situations that you may have been upset that you were born into an interracial family, or was there anything that made any one of you that were dating in another culture or another race just say like, man, I can't do this. This is going to be too difficult, and just say that I got to figure out a way to do something different because it's just too hard out here.
So my family in Texas, they used to call me Monster. So my grandmother used to always say, Monster, I know you better get that stringy hair out my kitchen. What? And I'd be like, why is my hair stringy? And why does everybody else get to go in the kitchen? And what makes me different, right? But it was...
Why they call you Monster?
The long story.
Okay, it's a long story. Okay.
It's a long story.
Okay.
But if you know, you say Linda and they'll say who, and then you say Monster. Oh, I know exactly who you want to talk to.
Okay, go ahead, finish your
But
story.
yeah, so it was interesting that I was always singled out because of the texture of my hair. But that was down south. My Korean family I never met until I was 40.
Oh wow.
So I never got to see them, so I never had any interactions with them. And they don't. And when I did meet them, they don't speak any English, so it was very limited, the exchange. But one thing I'll say is when I got to Seoul, they picked us up and spent every day with us, and took us everywhere unashamed.
Really?
But it was different growing up down south and being biracial, because at that time when I was growing up in East Texas, you just didn't see a lot of biracial kids. And my grandmother used to always say, don't bring them white girls home. Don't make no white friends.
Yeah.
You know, you stay away from that side of town. So even within my own upbringing, we were taught never to mix. Never to mix, even though my parents were a biracial couple.
Okay. Anybody else?
I think growing up in Detroit, we had the benefit of being in a black city and like being very close with my black family. They never like made us feel different. Like we were just, regular, and like there's not a lot of mixed people there, so we were just black. We was light-skinned black people. So that's what I grew up as and I identify as. I think it's harder going into the Jewish community as a black person because I also, was bat mitzvahed. I do speak Hebrew. I agree with
you speak Hebrew?
Yeah.
Okay.
So like
you learned it after you got married?
No, before when I was.
Oh, that's right, because your parents. That's right.
Yeah. So going into navigating that space is more of a challenge, but definitely there's strides being made there as well.
Sure, I'm sure you walked in. Wait a minute, she ain't Jewish. What's she doing
Right.
up in here? Let's see if she eats gefilte fish. Let's try it with that first. Let's check that out first. So we're at the point of the show right now where we're going to hear from our sponsors. Miss Cheryl Spence is going to see if she can get through without making one little mistake.
Okay.
It's on you, Cheryl.
Our local sponsors, Urbanica Building Design, Eddie Jenkins Law, Callaway Graphics, Sweet Embers Bakery, J. Rockwell Sound Studio, Shun's Kitchen, Janie Construction, Leo Papil, George Kramer, Suya Joint out in Roxbury, Mass. Great restaurant.
Oh, you just do some extra flavor. Some
And
extra
I have to
seasoning.
shout out to Jury at Leading Ladies Hair Salon who does my hair.
Is that a black woman? Is that a black woman?
Yes, she
Oh, you going over to the other side. Okay.
Moreland and Warren. Only charge me $10. Better than paying $7.
There you go.
National sponsors: Better Belly out of Chicago, Illinois. The Shop, Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. Apon Concepts out of Miami, Florida. And Campaign Industries out of Chicago, Illinois.
She did it. Let's give her a round of applause. She got to it. So today we're gonna start something new on our show. This is where we're just gonna complain to be complaining.
That's right.
And the segment of our show is called Cheryl Says, and our producer Cheryl Spence has an issue that she wants to address with our audience. I hope you're listening.
Cheryl says, do not get on the bus without change. You get on the bus, either you put the money on your car before you get on the bus while you're waiting for the bus, or don't get on the bus trying to jam the money down into the thing. And also, don't get on the bus on the back door. Because if you get on the back door, the bus driver's going to call you to the front of the bus, and you're going to have to pay.
That is
Makes
true.
no sense, these people tying me up all morning because they don't want to pay $2.10.
Then they get on the bus, they start looking behind you. Do you have change? Can I get change too? And then you get these other ones that got a separate change purse. All right? They got a 10 cent, here's 20 cent. Here's no, I can't put that in. I'm holding that quarter because I collect silver. I can't. Does anybody got change for 20? Anybody back here? Cheryl Says that's her first segment. Give her a round of applause. Applause.
Cheryl
When you get
Says.
on that bus, come correct. Jay, what we got from around the country?
So we got a question from Miss Ebony from Brooklyn, New York.
All right.
She says, do you find it awkward to talk about race? That's a good question. Especially, do you guys find it like awkward to just talk
Can
about?
I add to that too? What about when you see a situation that's black and white and it's become race motivated? Do your opinions differ when that issue comes up?
I think our opinions don't really differ. For me, the most awkward times is when there's especially working construction. It's encountered a few times when white guys start, being racist, throwing around the N-word or something. You know what I mean? This has been going on for obviously since I started working construction when I was 19. So it's just how I confront them, and that's really the most awkward usually time for me is just being around people like that.
Smart man, keep peace in the house.
That's right.
That's
Keep
right.
the peace.
That's
Keep
right.
the
Keep the
peace.
peace in the house.
Yeah, I just think we weren't taught how to talk about race,
Yeah.
so that makes it very difficult, especially when we're talking with other people who don't share the same race as us. That makes it harder.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, I think I was raised very different because I grew up in the South, like Black South. And then my mother is Korean, but she has no connection to her own family. So for me, I think that you have to be able, in a mixed interracial relationship, you have to be open, transparent, and you gotta not be too sensitive when you're talking about things that are impacting your day-to-day life. Because if as a family, if we're so sensitive about it, it disrupts our family. So you got to be able to say what you need to say and express your views and talk about things and be able to listen without being offended all the time.
Sure. Oh yeah. Yeah, I know what that's like. Why you laugh, Jay?
Yo, hold on. Somebody is on my Facebook Live says, my man with the ponytail look like Michael Bolton.
I told you he's smooth. You get that all the time, Noah? Do you get that all the time, Noah?
I've never gotten that one before.
Oh, Woody Harrelson.
Go ahead, Jay. You up?
Nah, no more questions, man. No more.
That's it?
Yeah, that was it.
Okay. What has been the easiest part of this? Being part of a biracial family. Pat, you're so laid back that nothing bothers you.
For me, I mean, just I've been blessed with the families on both sides, just wonderful families and supportive families. But I came up really a community and like geographically, like where you are, and for us where we are in Hyde Park, it's just an ideal neighborhood that we're in with the just the community that we have. Just for example, I mean, the direct neighbors across the street, the O'Briens, they've been there forever, 50, 60 years, long time residents. Right next door, we have another interracial couple, and they're like from a different generation too. It's the wife is Australian, and her husband's African American. They have grandkids. I mean,
Wow.
they're senior citizens.
Sure.
Right next door, we have next door neighbors from Trinidad, and then we have Cape Verdean family across the street, and then we have people new to the neighborhood, kind of young professionals moving in, Caucasian families, veterans, police, fire. Like it's just a nice mix of everybody, and it's just a sense of community, even though there's different backgrounds. We're fortunate.
It's something that you say that, Pat. Back in the day, I would have looked at it as though Hyde Park is an area that was predominantly white when I was young. It was an area that black folks did not go into at all, of a fear of being physically hurt. But if you would have mentioned a name like the O'Briens to me back then, I'm like, oh my goodness, we're moving next to the O'Briens, and then you don't realize it's a part of growing up in Boston. When don't go here, don't go there. You hear that name O'Brien. And then when you get to know them, you're like, man, these people are cool. We get along on a whole lot of things, I lived in a community like that in the South End, where it was a melting pot. It was a little bit of everybody. And there was a lot of mixing there with races and dating, and people got along with one another. But when you said that, it kind of kicked you like, oh, the O'Briens, oh my goodness.
I don't want to move to a different neighborhood really, because the experience might change. It's I don't want to go to an affluent neighborhood where everyone's white.
Sure.
I want to have a balance in different groups.
Absolutely, absolutely. What's been easiest part of being a part of your family?
For me, I don't know. I mean, everything seems pretty easy to me, but that's just because it's the way I was raised. So
Sure.
I'm not in the same situation Pat's in, where he comes into that situation. As a biracial child, that is all we know. So I don't know anything different about having families that are not blended in race-wise. And race was never a big topic for me, except for, my grandmother never wanted me to have friends with white people, not because she didn't want me to have them as friends, but she was afraid for me. What would happen to me if I went on certain parts of town, because they would always see me as a black woman. And my mom, because she came to this country alone, she has no connection really to Korea. And so she was brought into a black community.
Sure.
And so she identifies more, I think, with black families and feels more comfortable being around black people than she does with other races.
Okay.
I think love is love, and real recognize real. At the end of the day.
Oh, that was a good bit. Love is love, and real recognize real.
That's it.
That was kind of like the Jewish side and the black side. Real, we love is love.
Yep.
Go ahead.
That's what it comes down to, what it boils down to at the end of the day. The race thing takes another aspect with it, but if you find someone that truly loves you and is ready to rock with you, like, that's an honor.
Okay. See, she got a little flavor there. Kiana,
Yeah,
I didn't know you had this flavor, Kiana. At work, at work sometimes we got to be so tight, with you got flavor. Okay, girl. Go ahead. You know anything?
I would just like to say that, my flavor level stepped up. Thank you.
Little Dobo sauce right there.
Was it difficult? What about friends and friends that once your closest ace boom bar, your girl, and you tell them, oh, I'm dating outside the race. What was that like? What kind of comments did you get from them?
We have had with brother from another mother of mine here, who happens to be, he's white and Jewish, and also he's from he grew up partly in the South End also, over by the Waltham Tavern. But anyhow, he became a cop, right? Boston cop, but he's been out of work for a while. But when me and Kiana first started dating, and Black Lives Matter was going on, everything else, all the stuff that's going on with the police, and now it was very difficult for him to be able to have a conversation with Kiana without getting heated, and
Really?
yeah, it was really tough.
Brother from another mother. Is that another one of them sayings that you know you adopted from Kiana? Brother from another mother. The way he said that, I don't know, Noah. Anybody else?
So I have a funny story. So my daughter's Cape Verdean, and so when I went home to Texas, my aunt said, "Now, Mom,
Cape Verdean's black.
well, exactly. So in this part of the country, we consider Cape Verdeans to be black. So when I got home, my aunt said, now, Monster, now tell us about this. Now, all the time you was growing up, I never knew you to like Mexicans." And I said, "What?" And she goes, because she didn't know where Cape Verde was.
Sure.
And she just assumed Cape Verde was part of Mexico. And so it was just the craziest thing. And I said, "No, they're African." And she goes, well, you know I'm gonna have to run tell the people at the church because I told all them
We gotta straighten this out.
you had a baby with a Mexican. I mean, it's just like the way the conversation goes.
Sure.
But again, it's just like she said. It's just I love my family. I know they don't mean any harm. So you just have to be understanding of the things that come out of people's mouths.
So just staying there for a second. So when you said that, in that part of the country, in Texas, do blacks look down on Mexicans? And
Yes.
And was that a problem? Did they see that as a problem? Like,
yes, I went to high school with one Mexican American, Maria Lamas. She was one of the most beautiful women I had ever seen. Like, people say things like, oh, Selma Hayek or different people are beautiful, but she was truly one of the most beautiful women I had ever seen in my life. And the treatment that she got. And I also went to school with Matthew McConaughey. He was, 3 years ahead of me in high school. But I always knew he had a little flavor.
Oh, yeah,
and
yeah,
he
yeah.
sure enough
He's
did.
married, yeah.
But back in school, when we were in school, we were very, very segregated. Very
Question,
segregated.
I'm sorry. Did Matthew McConaughey try to holler?
No, I was a freshman.
No,
He was a senior.
he was just...
Yeah,
it's
like-
a big difference.
that's a big deal down south.
But that's
Yeah.
a big deal in high school. Seniors can't be dating freshmen.
Oh,
you know?
I didn't know. I thought,
It'd be
he-
different if she was a senior. He was a
Right,
freshman.
right.
You know, you
Okay,
get
I didn't know.
Reverend Wall, I was thinking, when I think about the clergy, I can't ever remember seeing a black pastor married to a white woman. I can't ever recall in my days. I can't remember. I don't know any clergy that I know of that are in mixed marriages. Now, there's one group though that I say that I've seen more mixing than anything, and that's Jehovah's Witnesses. I see a lot of mixing with that particular religious group. But what about the black pastors and?
I'm struggling with that one because we actually have a white pastor who broadcasts on this radio station who's married to a black woman, and I had a co-pastor at this church, Craig McMullen,
Sure, I remember
who was
Craig.
white, married to a West Indian
Okay.
woman. So
So it does happen.
it
Yeah,
does
there's
happen.
there's
Yeah.
pastors in Boston who are white men married to black women.
Really?
At Jubilee, yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Black women's irresistible, man. Of course.
I've never seen it. It's something too when you were talking about biracial. Do people only see biracial when they see skin color? Let me tell you what I mean. Pat, I've seen pictures of your daughter. She's the light skin with the straight hair. In this society, what's going on here? Something's going on. You got somebody white in your family somewhere in this mix. You said with your daughter, Linda. What is your daughter? Is she brown skin like you? Oh yeah. She would be considered most definitely biracial. Like, how does that? Is it if black man has let's say in this situation, well, it's going to be a little different there too, considering how Kiana already looks. But black man marries a white woman, and the majority of her physical traits look black. Different types of hair, skin color. Do people kind of still see that as biracial? I mean, do they identify? They probably wouldn't even know to ask. But it's just the look of somebody that I think that brings that out.
I think unfortunately it's that racism related to the color of your skin and the darkness of your skin, that kind of whole thing that won't go away. I think there's more kind of acceptance for lighter shades, or you can move between worlds kind of thing. I think there's a disadvantage probably the darker your complexion that still permeates today, which is sad. And
The blacker the berry, the sweeter the juice.
There you go.
So with my experience in my daughter, I think it's very difficult for someone just externally to determine what her ethnicity is. so she can move between all
Sure.
different groups.
Sure.
But when do we get to a point where it doesn't matter? Like, why do you have to know what my ethnicity is? Why does it matter?
Let me just say this too. It has come a long way, because years ago, with that type of situation, black and white, let's say you're a child and your parents come up to teach you school day or something, and you're like, oh man, look at that there. That's how it was looked at. It wasn't something that was common, and kids were kind of identified and kind of, in a sense, ostracized into their own group. That wasn't black, that wasn't white. There's this other group that you got that they hang out together. So nowadays, it's like I said, it was one of the weirdest things for me to see. I'm in South Boston, and yes, I'm a black guy that eats frozen yogurt, okay, because I crossed over a little. All right, I'm over to get my yogurt. And I see walking down the street a black girl, a Latino girl, and a white girl, teenagers, all having a good time, all hanging out together. And my day, you wouldn't see that at all. I mean, and even in South Boston too, it's tough, because if you weren't white Irish, you would have a tough time. You know, if so, it didn't matter. Even if you were white Italian, you walked over, you had a problem. So I just wanted to mention that. We're going to wrap this up. I want everyone to say whatever you'd like to say out to our viewers and people listening. Give me about 30 seconds, and say what you think about today's topic and what we should do around this issue. Noah, and we'll go straight to the panel.
Thank you, everybody, for listening today. It's been our pleasure. Thank you for having us on, and I'm glad we're talking about this topic. It's very important, and move forward.
Good stuff.
Yep, thank you for bringing this forward. Just keep reaching for one another and spreading that love.
Gian, I love your flavor, girl. I will tease you tomorrow. Linda?
I just think that just live a simple life, and if you live simply, you can give more, and what you want to give the most of is love.
P.
I would say just, your choices. Don't let other people determine make your own choices, and don't be bound by whatever, restrictions that maybe society might put on you. Don't be afraid to dive in if you want to,
Dive in. You know what? Let me just say this. There's always going to be racism, I believe. There's always going to be racist. But that's just my belief. But I think that's a small population of our society. The majority of folks are on page. We all love each other. We're all trying to get along. Keep thinking, like Pat said, make good decisions. It doesn't matter black or white. Let's just all make it work together. Jay, take us out of here.
I'd like to leave everybody with a quote. Darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that. And you already know that's from the late, great Dr. Martin Luther King. Keep knocking, keep rocking. We'll holler, folks.